Good.
Andrew, when you tump it like that, are you trying to make it sit into the rabbit?
A little bit. Like, I haven't cut the weirdness of the rabbit, so it's not going to sit completely yet, but a little bit better, yeah.
So this is essentially the shape that we're making today. It's almost perpendicular to the ground here, but parallel with the ground there.
Shut it off. Well, hey, we know how to do it now. I've got plenty more wood. So.
You want to start releasing it up there? Or?
Yeah, actually, if you want to go ahead with that, I'm going to go try and find another plank.
Okay. Fully off, correct?
Yes, thank you. The reason that there are so many sticks on this one is that I've reused pattern from the other side one and just added a few more to make it. It was really close to the same shape, but of course the rabbit is not identical side to side. So. Okay.
Awesome.
You can bring it in there a little bit. Steaming there. What happened? Yeah, this one takes like...
Yeah, getting the hose in before you just slip it in there.
Yeah, we're still not getting the pressure that we should be getting. this is the Mark II steam generator. It's still a monotube, but I've added a whole bunch of other features, and I think the efficiency has increased a lot. As it was, obviously it worked. It worked really well, but it was not super reliable. Like, depending on, I think, the weather, level of atmospheric pressure, even like the amount of water that it needed to go through it for it to work right was so small that anything in the environment changing kind of threw it off. And also getting that amount exactly right was very, very, very difficult, especially with a ball valve, next to impossible. So it was really finicky, and I'd sort of had enough of that. And part of my thinking was that, in essence, the water is coming in at a constant speed that's dictated by town water, which I did figure out what that was at one point, how many cubic feet per minute or whatever it is. Doesn't really matter once you've done that. But since you're sort of limited to that and whatever additional velocity you can pick up from thermal expansion once it starts heating, essentially the water wasn't in the system long enough to all turn into steam. I only had 50 feet of coil, so that tiny bit of water, was not all turning to steam reliably. Sometimes it was, sometimes it wasn't, and the difference between was and wasn't, I think, was really just probably down to atmospheric pressure and temperature, so like relative output of the propane, because an unregulated propane system particularly is very sensitive to differences in temperature, which this is unregulated, so that you get that massive flame. So this now has about 100 feet of coil, so doubled the amount of coil that there's in there. And so there's an outer coil, which is sort of like a preheat coil, which actually enters from the top, so that you pick up a bit of gravity too. So it's like feeding down into the system with gravity with you, turns around at this union here, and then goes up a tighter coil up the middle, which is the primary coil, which is reused from how it was before. That then comes out here, and I've got a test and or relief valve here, so that I can check the lower part of the system independently, and then a shut-off valve for it to go into the extremely emptied, this was extremely empty 20-pound propane tank. There was no doubt about there being any propane in there. Do not do anything like this without being very, 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 very sure that there's no propane in here. This acts as two things. It kind of acts as a steam dome or a steam bell, so it's a reservoir that holds that rising pressure, so that you retain a bit of pressure in the system, as opposed to it just all going in and out. And then it also acts somewhat as a separator, which is, if there is still any of the feed that is water rather than steam at this point, it will fall out of here to the bottom of the tank and not rise up to the outlet. It then also, because the bottom of the tank is getting hit by the flame from underneath, it has another chance to turn into steam before exiting the system. So I've probably tripled the amount of heating surface, maybe even more. Not entirely sure how to do that math, but and then I've got another test and or relief valve here for checking the upper part of the system, and then just a ball valve shut off for the steam output, which goes down this heater hose to wherever I'm bending a plank in. I also added this extremely high-tech safety feature, which is a cedar peg stuck in a hole. The thought being that this will fly out at high velocity before this explodes. If I ever generate that amount of pressure, which I don't seem to be. I put this gauge on here so that I'd have some idea, of what kind of pressures I'm generating, and for the most part, I'm hardly generating any pressure in here. It's like it kind of flickers between 1 and 5 psi, as long as it's going out somewhere. If I shut everything, I'm sure it would build pretty quickly, but there's no reason to do that, other than idle curiosity, which could make the whole thing explode. So I'm not going to do that. Speaking of explosions, I did have a minor mishap test firing this, which basically there was as far as I can tell, there was a pressure issue with there was pressure coming back down the line that stopped the steam from coming out for a little bit, so there was essentially a blockage, and then when that cleared, it cleared very, very suddenly, I think, and it actually blew out a little section of this soft copper pipe, which is another safety feature. I mean, this whole lower part of the system, if it explodes, it's a non-event. It just like pops open and water comes out and puts the flame out. So it's, you know, in some ways very safe, which is counterintuitive. But yeah, it works really, really well as long as I don't do that. So here we go. So the correct amount of water is still relatively low, but not nearly as finicky. And also I've put gate valves on everything, which give you finer control than you have with a ball valve. So that is, I think, about right. And then it starts heating up instantly. This is now picking up due to thermal expansion, and I have steam already. So I'm going to open up the valve into the tank, shut this one off, and getting the upper part of the system to start producing takes a little bit longer than that, but you get a little bit straight away, pretty much. I need to check on it every now and again to see what's going on in there. Very good. There you have it. And once I'm confident it's going nicely, I'll open up the outlet valve and shut that gate valve off, and away you go. It's a lot of really hot steam really quickly, and there's very little in it that's still water, which, like, it's not bad to have water in your steam for steaming planks. In some ways that's better. However, it does block your hose. That little bits of water, especially if the hose would have to go a little bit up and over things, it tends to stop the flow of the steam, which is irritating and potentially an issue. At long last, we have harnessed the infernal power of steam. So the base of this is the same. It's sort of cobbled together from one of those like outdoor propane grill things, but with longer legs welded onto it and a windshield welded onto it. And now the central, like the casing is like the middle part of a 5-gallon portable air tank, with the ends cut off, coiled up, that 100 foot of copper coil up the middle, and 20-pound propane tank. So it's a lot of fittings and valves. It wasn't entirely inexpensive to do this, but the amount of steam is worth it. So. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Le tape du canard.
La tête du connard.
Ouais, ouais, ouais.
Bon, c'est magnifique.
C'est magnifique.
C'est très chic, c'est bon. Be a part of this process.
Yeah, you're getting the whole experience.
Yeah, because didn't you cut that rabbit, Dane?
I helped cut it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I showed Andrew how to do it, and then let him do the rest. I mean, all of my experience, and yeah. I mean, I've read a lot about boat building. So naturally, I'm the experienced one.
Shit, I don't know what I'm gonna say. Beans.
Just look square into the camera and go, monotube steam generator Mark II.
Beans. That's what you wanted me to do, right?
That is
It's basically basically what you said.
That's what I said.
Okay. Beans. All right. Right. So now we've got to do is build a sauna, innit?